Welcome to WeLearn Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 5 of Social Problems in India and the topic is migration. Topics to be covered are introduction, migration, its significance, concept, forms and characteristics. Reasons for migration, consequences of migration, problems of refugees and displaced persons, and the last one is migration policy. Now come to the first topic, that is introduction. Migration is usually defined as a geographical movement of people involving a change from their usual place of residence. But it is distinguished from temporary and very short distance moves. Migration can be internal, that is within the national boundaries, and international, across the international borders. After discussing the sociology and significance, the definition of concept of migration, we discuss the major determinants of migration in terms of social, economic, psychological, political and religious factors. Types of migration like rural and urban as well as voluntary or involuntary migration are explained. Now second, migration significance, concepts, form and characteristics. First, sociological significance. Migration is the third component of population change and the other two beings mortality and fertility. Migration is different from the other two processes, namely mortality and fertility, in the sense that it is not a biological factor like the other two, which operates in a biological framework through influenced by social, cultural and economic factors. Migration is influenced by wishes of persons involved. Usually each migratory movement is deliberately made, though in exceptional cases this may not hold true. Thus, migration is a response of human organisms to economic, social and demographic forces in the environment. The study of migration occupies an important place in population studies because, along with fertility and mortality, it determines the size and rate of population growth as well as its structure and characteristics. Migration also plays an important role in the distribution of the population of any country and determines the growth of labor force in any area. Migration is thus an important symptom of social changes in society. Second is concepts. In the layman's language, the word migrations refers to the movement of people from one place to another, and according to Demographic Dictionary, migration is a form of geographical mobility or spatial mobility between one geographical unit and another, generally involving a change in residence from the place of origin or place of departure to the place of destination or place of arrival. Such migration is called permanent migration and should be distinguished from other forms of movement which do not involve a permanent change of residence. Everett Lee, a well-known demographer, defines migration broadly as a permanent or semi-permanent change in residence. No restriction is placed upon the distance of the move or upon the voluntary and involuntary nature of the act. Migration, according to Eisenstedt, refers to the physical transition of an individual or a group from one society to another, and this transition usually involves abandoning one social settings and entering another and different one. Manglam also stresses the permanent shifting of the people in his definition and considers migration as a relatively permanent moving away of a collectivity called the migrants from one geographical location to another, and it is preceded by decision making on the part of the migrants. They weight and consider sets of values in two comparative situations, resulting in change in the interactional system of the migrants. Holiday trips or sailors' occupation are not included in it. Mehta, in his studies of Rajasthan, treats migration as an act of movements or spatial mobility. A perusal of all these definitions indicates that almost all scholars emphasize time and space and defines migration as a movement from one place to another permanently or semi-permanently. In brief, When a person leaves his native place or village, comes to an urban area, takes up a job and start living there, he is known as a migrant and his move is referred to a migration. Now forms. People may move within a country between different states or between different districts of the same state, or they may move between different countries. Therefore, different terms are used for internal and external migration. Internal migration refers to migration from one place to another within a country, but external migration or international migration refers to migration from one country to another. Immigration and emigration. Immigration refers to migration into a country from another country, and emigration refers to migration out of the country. These terms are used only in connection with international migration. For example, migrants leaving India to settle down in the US or Canada are immigrants of the US or Canada and emigrants from India. Immigration or outmigration. These are used only in connection with internal migration. Immigration refers to migration into a particular area, while outmigration refers to the movement of a particular area. Thus, migrants who comes from Bihar or Uttar Pradesh to Punjab are considered to be immigrants for Punjab, and outmigrants from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. The term immigration is used with reference to the area of destination of the migrants, and the term outmigration is used with reference to the area of origin or place of departure of the migrants. Now, the forms of internal migration in India are: first is internal, second is external. Internal is again divided into two parts, immigration and outmigration. External is again divided into two parts, that is immigration and emigration. Now, there are various forms of internal migration in India, that is from rural to rural, rural to urban, urban to urban, and urban to rural. Characteristics. There are some important characteristics of the migrants and migration, and important characteristics is the age selectivity of the migrants. Generally, young people are more mobile. Most migration studies, especially in developing countries, have found the rural-urban migrants are predominantly young adults and relatively better educated than those who remains at the place of origin. It is obvious that migration for employment takes place mostly at the young adult ages. Also, a major part of the female migration consequential to marriage occurs at the young adult age. Thus, people have a tendency to move when they are between their teens and their mid-30s than at other ages. Another important characteristic is that the migrants have a tendency to move to those places where they have contract or where the previous migrants are linked for the new migrants, and this chain is thus formed in the process and is usually called chain migration. Various studies shown that the people do not blindly go to the new places, thus usually have kinship chains and network to relatives and friends who help them in different ways. In some cases, the migrants not only tends to have the same destination but also tends to have the same occupation. For example, research reveals that in certain hotels in Jaipur, almost all the workers belong to one particular sub-regions of Kumarao. The agriculture laborers in Punjab and Haryana are mainly from Bihar and eastern Uttar Pradesh. Now, reasons for migration. First is economic factor. In the most of the developing countries, low agricultural income, agricultural unemployment and underemployment are the major factor pushing the migrants towards area with greater job opportunities. Second is push factor. The push factor are those that compel the force a person due to various reasons to leave that place and go to some other places. For example, adverse economic condition caused by poverty, low productivity, unemployment, exhaustion of natural resources, natural calamities may compel people to leave their native place in search of better economic opportunities. Pull factor. Pull factor refers to those factors which attract the migrants to an area, such as opportunities for better employment, higher wages, better working conditions and better amenities of the life, etc. There is generally cityward migration. When rapid expansion of industry, commerce and business takes place in recent years, the high rate of movement of people from India as well as from other developing countries to the USA, Canada and now to the Middle East is due to the better employment opportunities, higher wages and better amenities of life, variety of occupations to choose from and possibility of attaining higher standards of living.
Sometimes the migrants are also attracted to cities in search of better culture and entertainment activities or bright city lights. However, pull factor operates not only in the rural urban migration but also in other types of internal as well as international migrations.
Next is socio-cultural and political factors. Beside these push and pull factors, social and cultural factors also play an important role in migration. Sometimes family conflicts also cause migration. Improve communication facilities such as transportation, impact of the radio and the TV, cinemas, urban oriented education and resultant changes in attitudes and values also promote migration. Sometimes even political factor encourages or discourages migration. For instance, in our country, the adoption of the jobs for sons or sons of the soil policy by the state government will certainly affect the migration from other states. The rise of Shiv Sena in Bombay with its hatred for the migrants and the occasional eruptions of violence in the name of local parochial patriotisms is a significant phenomenon. Even in Calcutta, Bengali conflict will have far-reaching implications, and now Assam and Tamil Nadu are other such examples. Thus, political attitudes and outlook of the people also influence migration to a great extent, and there have also been migration from Kashmir to Punjab because of terrorist activities. Economic. These are the consequences of migration. First is economic. Migration from a region characteristics by labor surplus helps to increase the average productivity of labor in the region, as this encourages labor saving device or great work participations by remaining family workers. On the other hand, there is a view that migration negatively affects the emigration regions and favors the immigration regions, and that migration would widen the development disparity between the regions because of the drain of the resourceful persons from the relatively underdeveloped regions to the more developed regions. But the exodus of the more enterprising member of community cannot be considered a loss if there is a lack of alternative opportunities in the rural areas. As long as migration draws upon the surplus labor, it would help the emigration regions. It will have adverse effect only human resources are drained away at the cost of the development of the region. Another important point is that when migration draws away the unemployment or underemployment, it would enable the remaining population of the regions to improve their living conditions, as this would enable the remaining population to increase the per capita consumption, since the total number of mouths to be fed into is reduced as a result of emigration. Demographic migration has a direct impact on age, sex and occupational composition of the sending and receiving regions. Migration of the unmarried males of young working age results in imbalance in sex ratio. The absence of many young men from the villages increasing the proportion of the other groups such as women, children and old people. This tends to reduce the birth rate in the rural areas. Further, the separation of the rural male migration from their wives for long duration also tends to reduce the birth rate. Social and psychological. Urban life usually brings about certain social changes in the migrants. Those migrants who return occasionally or remain in direct or indirect contact with the household of their origin are also likely to transmit some new ideas back to the ideas of origin. Several studies attribute technological change to the dynamisms of the return migrants who brings money as well as knowledge and experience of different production techniques, and this may lead to mechanization and commercialization of agricultural activities. Sometimes forced movement of people takes place due to political and religious disturbance of war. Such movements shift people to the neighboring countries as refugees. The UN defines a refugee as every person who, owing to well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group or political opinion the outside the country of his nationality and is unable or owing to such fear is unwilling to avail himself of the protection of that country. Migration policy in India. Little attention has been paid at the policy level to control the pattern of either international or internal migration. at the international level, the country doesn't have even up-to-date statistics of the immigrants and the emigrants, although most of the international migration is controlled by passport and visa permits. Questions have been risen about the brain drain from India in various forms, but nothing has been done to stop it, as there are considerable numbers of educated unemployed in the country. Now there are some questions on the basis of this session. First is, what is sociological significance of migration? Use 6 lines to answer. Second is, what are the important variables taken into consideration is defining migration? And use 4 lines to answer. That's it for this session. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.